amount of time and put more money in. That's not what I'm came up with the recommendation for demolition.
We will have a better picture of whether or not it's, and then what we've got to do to shore up the building, roof, walls, the scope I read earlier, to do all that by the January timeframe.
Essentially a second ordinance or a work program ordinance to present to council, building whether or not the barricades can be removed, to paraphrase, whether or not rehabilitation of the building is even feasible at that point. And that's all built into the conditions.
Would it be feasible, or do you think it would make a difference if Fitz and Shipman looked at this report and they told us what they thought now, or that their opinion may change?
I don't want to try to speak for what they may or may not say. I would expect that they would be reluctant to, based on the fact that it's based on another engineer who's given a qualified statement. And again, while, it's going to take a little time, the idea is that by October, November, they should have a clearer idea of what the situation is.
And one last thing, and I agree with you.
It says after the fire is fully collapsed. So, two different, an insurance policy with the city of Beaumont is an additional insured.
South to north on Main and cut into Crockett Street parking lot, or you can come eastbound on Crockett Street. Has disrupted traffic on a massive scale. I'm sure we can find a way to address access egress. Rob mentioned to me an idea that
the internal structure is still in place. And Tom mentioned that, there's not can quantify whether that's going to happen or not. Fitz and Shipman, we worked with those guys in this closure.
Some time ago, within 60 days to supply AB. November 1, we could come back and revisit the road opening, because we're saying that's the amount of time that they need. I just don't want to keep.
The next steps could be, and at that time, there should be a more definite study based on what his engineer has provided. There'll be a more definite study on where they fall on the stability of the building.
Okay, well, I didn't know if everyone needed to continue, but Mayor, this just kind of.
All right, Councilman Durio.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Getz mentioned earlier about a strong wind event, and they said it was
50-mile-an-hour winds. Then we close the street again, but we keep the sidewalk closed until at such time we feel it's safe to reopen the sidewalk. So I yield. I'm not going to say nothing else.
may I offer something on that? Something that Councilman Felshaw said made me think. So think of the building shaped like this. 165 and 65, and the main street that we're concerned with closing right now is Pearl Street right here, and Chuck's Sandwich and the dress shop and the hair salon are right here. Okay, so these beams, the steel columns are still there, and the longitudinal beams are still there for support on this wall. Okay. The floor joists, except for the fourth floor, as Rob explained, are gone.
On the structure, the condition of the building than anybody else right now, certainly more than Fitz and Shipman had that judgment. So, and our opinion is positive in that direction. So if the city were to reconsider with a restatement from Fitz and Shipman that they stand behind their original statement to open the streets, again, we have more information than they had at the time that I think indicates that it's the right thing to do. Then that could be something pretty definitive for you guys to work with.
Thank you. All right. With that, unless there's
No.
All right. Then we are closing the public hearing.
Payment to the city of Beaumont within 10 days of the date of this order for reimbursement for use of the 34 wall barricades and continuing payments for continued use of the barricades. That's my motion. I don't think we have to discuss in that motion what the city wants to do with regard to removing the barricades for the street, but I would encourage us to adopt Councilmember Felshaw's idea of, monitoring the weather and when it's, unless there's a big.
Let's go with your motion. So we have a motion on. There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this? Councilman, all right, Councilman Felshaw, then Councilman Durio.
They keep bringing up, they'll just go back to the original recommendation of Fitz and Shipman that the sidewalks could be open. But, I mean, the streets, sidewalks had to be closed. But also, their original recommendation was for demolition. That was part of their original recommendation also. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Councilman Felshaw?
I would just like to ask the staff to please consider a way of finding to keep the sidewalk closed, but open the street, and let's monitor the weather, he said. That would, because I think we've got to give some relief to these local businesses.
Yes, and I would, I don't know that I want to add that to the motion, but I would also like additional conversations to be had with the engineers about if it would be possible to open the streets before the 60 days, if they feel like it's safe. So,
If I may,
yes, sir.
recommendation came somewhere to close the street, and I'm guessing from staff members who were concerned at the time. And I'm not sure if they're here or who said that, but if we have a good reason to why we thought they should be closed, we need to hear them now.
So to give a timeline on it, we got the engineering report, as you read, while the fire was smoldering and everything, closed the street. During the council hearing on June 18th, I believe that it was Ron, the engineer for Alliance, had mentioned that at this time he recommends for the streets to be closed because we don't know. And so at that point, we've kept on with that. But to look at it, we certainly can. I think that was a great idea to have Fitz and Shipman and Alliance in the same room, of course, with city officials and including the building officials, to really get a sound decision on that.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? So we have a motion, we have a first and a second for the alternate motion that has been read into record by Councilman Getz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I vote in favor, so that would be 4 votes. And so motion carries. And at this point, I'm going to recommend that we table the work session for the proposed vacant building registry and agenda item number 10. Councilman Turner is returning.
Are you looking for a motion and a second on that?
I am looking for a motion and a second. Second. Table the work session and agenda item number 10 to the next meeting.
Councilman Samuel motioned, Councilman Neal second.
All those in favor, Councilman, is there discussion?
Why are we doing this? We've been here this long. Why not plow through?
There's been some suggestions to me to go ahead and just postpone it since we can bring it back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of tabling the work session and agenda item number 10 to our next regular scheduled council meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. At this point, we have council member comments, and then we'll recess to executive session for a couple of the items. Councilman Durio, any comments?
We had councilman comments?
We tabled the other items, and then we're going to have councilman comments and move up to the.
Just want to thank staff for their budget report. Very informative, and I think we got a lot accomplished. And let me look at my notes. I think that's it.
Councilman Getz.
I just want to thank the manager and staff for getting the pavilion at Rogers Park under construction. The framework's already up. It looks like it's going to be great. It's certainly needed in this heat, and it should be finished by, well, what's the timetable for finishing it? Do we have anybody on staff that would happen to know? What's the timetable for finishing it? The pavilion at Rogers Park.
I think you lost all the other directors.
All right, well, anyway, great, thank you.
Councilman Turner?
I'm not gonna be long. I'm just gonna congratulate Taylor's daughter. She starts college on tomorrow, so I'm gonna not comment to get my brother out here so he can go home and be with his family, man.
Councilman Felshaw?
No comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Neal? Madam City Attorney? All right, and I thank everybody for still being here. And with that, we are recessed to executive session.